Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you. I'm excited to be here with you virtually. My name is Konstantine Vlasis. I'm a composer and a PhD candidate in music and sound studies at New York University. And today I'll just share a little bit of my work about some of my own musical approaches to climate communication and environmental storytelling in Iceland. Before roadways carved the land, before people arrived by ships, before meltwater lakes grew deep, and before the outlet glaciers descended from Vatnajökull, a birch forest covered the outwash plain of Breiðamerkursandur in Iceland. Today, as the adjacent glacier melts away, fragments of this ancient forest have been found in the area. Miles away, in the small town of Laugarvatn, there rests another birch forest. So too are these trees rooted within a transformative history, as native species were destroyed or supplanted. Reforestation projects of the mid-20th century have now yielded a hybrid forest in which the non-native Skógafura, or the Baltic pine, has adapted to local ecologies and climates. In my presentation today, I want to discuss and premiere two music compositions. They frame these regions, both of these landscapes, not simply as memorial sites for lost birch trees, but as complex landscapes that have faced the impacts of a changing climate, necessities of ecological adaptation, and methods of control or care enacted through anthropogenic influence. For me, music is a means for climate communication and environmental storytelling. I find music can offer different perspectives for how we imagine rapidly changing environments. As trees become valued as carbon capture tools or wildfire fuel, or as glaciers become solely understood as symbols for melt and disappearance, music can help us resist those narratives, reframe our relationships to change, and amplify the histories and futures of specific landscapes. The two compositions I share today have been composed with this ethos in mind. They are site-specific pieces brought to life by the percussion quartet Apex Percussion, of which I'm a performing member. I will premiere these performance videos and discuss the concepts and production for each piece. The first project is written for 4 percussionists and a grove of Skógafura. And I'll just go ahead and play this initial example for you and then get into some of the details behind the piece. So here in its premiere, a song for lost trees. One goal for this project was to embrace these trees as both an instrument and an ensemble member, asking how might we hear this tree grove as a co-composer and performer. When skogafora were first introduced to the area in the mid-20th century, not many survived, as Iceland had no real predator for the kind of flea beetle that accompanied the species. The trees that did survive became all the more resilient and now dot the mountainside in small clusters. Because these pockets of trees are sparse, they have remained relatively untouched by the Icelandic Forestry Service and wider public. While the lack of thinning and trimming has allowed the trees to grow tall, the overstories have blocked the undergrowth below, effectively suffocating smaller trees and yielding an array of dead branches. The unique orientation of these branches dictated the specific pitches for this composition. Guitar strings were connected around the grove and adjusted to specific pitches using tuning pegs within the branches themselves. Contact microphones and mini-amps amplified these tones. You might have noticed that as the wind blew within the canopy, the pitches were constantly flexing and bending, which served as another musical texture created by climate and tree alike. Additionally, the soundscape of our performance site was crucial for the piece. Noise pollution such as road traffic, air traffic, machinery, and sometimes human conversation enveloped the surrounding non-human sounds like wind and birdsong. For me, this collective soundscape is a reflection of the landscape's history, as those sounds cross a boundary between past, present, and human nature binaries. If the skogafora remain remnants of anthropogenic reforestation, how do we imagine nature as untouched, as a particular species, as ecologies under change? To situate listeners within a seemingly natural soundscape that includes road traffic, or to hear the wind and trees pitch bend composed music, are attempts to point out the limits of a human-nature dualism, especially for site-specific pieces. I also tried to communicate this idea by constructing the written music as a composite rhythm that builds throughout the entire piece, slowly adding individual notes across each performer. This creates a lot of space at the beginning of the piece so that the soundscape remains a leading theme throughout the form and the foundation upon which the composite rhythm unfolds. In this way, sound, music, and landscape are each sums of multiple parts or larger forces and are each constantly changing and adapting in unexpected ways. The second project is a data sonification work for percussive rudiment and glacial ice. This composition is part of a larger research project called Breiðamerkurjökull 2121, which attempts to visualize the projected future change of the Breiðamerkurjökull outlet glacier in Southeast Iceland. While my colleagues are interested in visualizations, 3D modeling, and landscape animation, I'm interested in the ways that we can listen to the landscape change over time. Based on the past decade of glacial recession data, our team of glaciologists and researchers have built speculative data sets for the next century. Using a process called data sonification, I've been able to render these data sets into audio format. I decided to focus the sonification on rhythm in order to communicate the speed or rate at which the glacier will change. An increasing metronome matches the percentage increase between each data set. So the change in tempo represents how quickly the glacier will down waste over the next century. In order to hear this change rate, the performer plays a rudiment repeatedly. The left and right hand sticking pattern is inspired by the dataset timescale alongside the year this piece is performed. So 21, 21, 2, 1, 2, 4. Importantly, though, each iteration of this rhythmic sequence represents 1 year of time. So the performer will kind of play through this iteration 100 times over the 3-minute piece. There's also a sound design narrative using a series of microphones, impulse responses, and recordings of meltwater streams running on and through the glacier. I wanted to show how the glacier is not just disappearing, but undergoing state change from solid ice to liquid water. As a listener, you begin on the surface of the glacier, then move into and through the ice before finally arriving under the ice and surrounded by meltwater streams. The final section of the sonification quickly pulls you back to the surface before ending abruptly. And so this is 21, 24. These compositions speak to how we perceive, interact with, and imagine landscapes. And thanks for that time card. As specific site pieces that focus on climate communication or environmental storytelling, these works not only force us to confront our direct experience of a place, but filter that present experience through a lens of past and future environmental change. Inevitably, the material impacts of our presence in these spaces and our curation of natural sound into music is an opportunity to recognize complicity or resistance to the changes these landscapes face. Whether the violent tapping of glacial ice with drumsticks or the drilling of tuning pegs into branches, I hope these pieces would be a site where conversations about environmental control and care are negotiated. For each project, I collaborated with scientists and conservationists to understand the history of these landscapes and their current ecologies, but also their futures. The branches that comprised our tree instrument were selected by members of the Iceland Forestry Service. The staff requested we use dead branches or branches that they specifically marked so that they could trim the trees in a way that would foster surrounding understory growth and individual tree health for years to come. By comparison, our glacier research team is currently working on other future data sets that are built from different carbon emission scenarios over the next 100, 200, and 300 years. In both cases, future environmental care is prioritized and approached through collaboration. What are the stories of these future landscapes? Will native birch trees still be sparse, or will they thrive? Perhaps music can't answer these questions, but it is certainly a way to pose them and a tool to guide our answers. As these compositions attempt to show, music can help us hear landscapes and our entangled ecologies. It can inform an environmental aesthetic in practice, and it can amplify a sense of urgency without relying on doomsday rhetoric. I hope that our listening can then grow from a place of wonder, play, and care rather than fear and anxiety. The non-native Skogafora have helped restore the birch ecologies in Lagervat, and scientists are now finding ancient birch tree fragments near the terminus of retreating glaciers alongside the slowly greening Breiðamerkursandur area. With that recognition, I'd like to think that both of these compositions could be thought of as songs for lost trees, but also as songs for what will be found or shaped for posterity. Thank you.